So the purpose of today's webinar is to be looking at the document entitled Taking Change Forward. So Taking Change Forward is more than just a document, it's a resource, and it was created for the purpose of enabling groups and individuals across Canada to be able to explore and explain Oxfam's contents in a more in-depth way. And this originated from Oxfam Canada's youth program and specifically the National Change Summit. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look through at what the intention behind this document and the content contained in this document is, and then thinking creatively about what some of the uses are and getting a better understanding of how people can make use of this resource throughout the coming months and years in your groups across the country or in your individual work in terms of understanding and promoting Oxfam's mission and programs. So why we created Taking Change Forward. So Taking Change Forward is a resource, and it was inspired by Oxfam's training program on women's rights. So a large part of what Oxfam's campus program exists to do is to run a series of trainings that provide the attitude, skills, and knowledge for young people to become better advocates of women's rights and gender justice. And so though we have these in-person trainings across the country, one of the things that sort of happened in the conversation of these trainings is the understanding that this is reaching a certain group of people, but we want the experiences and the values and the sort of best practices learned in those environments to be translated to people who aren't able to actually be in those spaces with us. And so the idea was to create an outline and a showcasing of what some of the experiences were by participants in those spaces so that they could be used by individuals and groups across the country. So that's where it was inspired by, was those particular trainings, and particularly this document was developed by a series of youth volunteers from across the country that were facilitators at the 2012 National Change Summit. And so the purpose of it is that it's designed to enable groups to lead their own learning workshops on Oxfam content. So this means that individuals and groups can gain a better understanding of what the issues and focus of what Oxfam's work is. And then at the same time, it's designed to support groups and individuals to use as a base in delivering external workshops on behalf of Oxfam. So if a group or an individual is requested to sort of speak in terms of what Oxfam's programs are or in terms of what Oxfam's campaign focuses are, then the idea is Taking Change Forward will help enable people to be able to do that more effectively. And the way that it does that is by presenting basic workshop outlines that can be used and tailored to the sort of context of whatever it is that you want to be using it for. So be that getting together with a group of friends to go through one of them in a fun and interactive way to sort of understand Oxfam's focus, or be that, you know, sitting down with your group and using your general meeting as a time to sort of learn more about the organization as well as planning events and activities. So the way that Taking Change Forward works is largely it is a document, and we have tried to divide it and create it in a way where it is usable and interactive. So there's several elements to the document, and each workshop includes a session outline, what we call a participant map, and a list of additional resources. And so what I'm going to do is I'll actually flip back and forth a little bit and let you see the document and how it's laid out, and then also show you how to sort of go through it on the Oxfam Canada website so that you can get an understanding of how to find it and make use of it. So there's several elements, like I was saying, to the document. So you can see the document here, and basically the way that it works is that there's a brief introduction to the document, which sort of outlines the context that I was speaking about, as well as an indicator or a map of how to use the guidebook. So the guidebook is divided into chapters, and that's what's outlined right here at the beginning, is the sort of chapter element of the document. And so each of those chapters is based around one specific goal, one specific learning goal that we were focusing on at the Change Summit this summer. And those goals are in focus with what Oxfam's priorities are on developing the skills and abilities to advocate for women's rights. So those chapters are, if we zoom up here, you can take a look at them. We have focusing on women's rights and gender equality, There's focusing on developing the ability to be a campaigning force, and there's looking at how to develop active citizenship and leadership in individuals that are working on behalf of the organization. So the document is divided into those chapters, and then within each of those chapters is individual workshops. And each of those individual workshops is in the 3 parts: the workshop outline, the participant map, and the additional resources. So we'll just take a quick scan through here. If we keep going, you can see they each have a title page for the chapters. So that's how you can know which of the sections that you're in terms of the documents. So chapter 1 is the women's rights, chapter 2 is the campaigning force, and chapter 3 is active citizenship. And then at the same time, each workshop has a cover note as well. And so this just gives a brief description of what the workshop title is and what the purpose of the workshop is, to sort of give you a general sense and so that you know that you're on the right pages. So this particular first workshop here is called Women's Rights Allies, and it's a workshop exploring the role that women's rights groups in our communities can play in collaboration with Oxfam. So when we move down the document, you can see this first bit works in a session outline. And so the way the session outlines are designed is that at the top of each of them, there is this section which gives sort of a general overview of the sort of important top-line information about the session. So it talks about the length of the session, the intended group size, as well as the materials that you need for using the workshop. So the materials that are listed tend to be the sort of actual tangible elements, as in markers, pens, papers, those sorts of things. And some of the workshops require specific content pieces. So there's a series of cards that's used, or there's a specific handout that's used. And in that regard, those things are actually listed as downloadable links within the document. So if you arrive at one of those places, it should say, download something here, and there would be a link available. And so in the outline, you can see it's broken down time-wise. So there's an introduction, 5 minutes, context and brainstorm, 15 minutes, and it sort of goes through an explanation of each of the sections of the workshop. And so there's, bolded points that are good pieces to sort of pull out and possibly be writing up on flip charts. And so we tried to highlight some of the elements that you would want to use in facilitating one of these workshops. There's also contact information if there are questions about any of the workshops, or people want to know or understand more about how to be using them, then you can just contact Oxfam Canada directly, and specifically the Youth and Campus Outreach Officer, and we're happy to guide you through the process of understanding some of these a little bit more. So that's the first piece, which is the workshop outline. And then we go into the participant maps, or the participant experience maps. And so these are designed to sort of give a quick one-page printout overview of what the learning process of the workshop looks like. So the idea with this was to be able to give facilitators a quick reference point in terms of what the process of the workshop likes, but also to act as a bit of a recording piece from the experiences of the participants that originally were the test cases for these workshops. So as I said, this document is a product of a training that happened this past summer in August that had 40 participants from across the country. And so in these participant experience maps, we're both outlining how the workshop played itself out in practice, and also some of the conversations that came up in terms of what participants said when they participated in this workshop. So you can sort of see it's a projection of what the outcome of this workshop could look like, so that you can get an understanding of how the direction plays out with the participant group. So if you look at this particular one on the Women's Rights Allies workshop, there's a couple of key questions here at the top that we were talking about. So these were the questions that were being asked of the group, the different directions that the question could have taken. And then this is, the brainstorm piece that happened within the workshop. And this is a list of the actual participants' ideas as to what came up when they participated in the workshop. So that's the idea of this piece sort of within the document. And then the third piece is to go down and to see external resources. So the idea of the external resources is that facilitators were citing any sort of source material that existed for when the workshops were developed. So if it was based on another workshop that someone had seen, or it was based on the ideas surrounding a certain article that had been read, that is contained in the resources. And as well, the resources exist to sort of direct people to more Oxfam specific information on the topic at hand. So this one on women's rights allies, it's sort of redirecting you to, some publications, the Oxfam publication Gender and the Green Climate Fund, to get a better understanding of, how Oxfam has worked in alliance with partner organizations surrounding issues of climate justice. And so that's what the resources section sort of exists to do. So that's a general overview of how the document is sort of laid out in those three pieces. So that's going back to sort of explaining what it is. That's the idea of the different elements of the workshop. So you can access the workshops looking specifically at a theme, so one of the chapter themes, or at a specific workshop. And so that is sort of how we've outlined the use of the workshops on the website. So you should be able to see I'm on oxfam.ca on our website now, and there's a specific page called Oxfam Workshops, and all of this is listed under the campus groups section of the website, which is the top section just here on the left of the navigation bar, and then Oxfam Workshops is under group resources. So I'm going to jump back actually to the Oxfam homepage and just sort of direct you through how to get to where the workshops are. So if you're here on the main page, in the top right-hand corner, there's a link called Campus Groups. So if we go into there, this brings us to the original Campus Group landing page, which explains what Oxfam campus groups are and how they operate across the country and what they sort of exist to do. And then within the navigation bar on the left, there's a section called Group Resources. So when you go to that Group Resources page, it again brings you to a landing page, but it should expand the navigation bar so that you can see a series of other resources that are available. So there's the registration forms for groups, the group guide, and then the workshops is the third drop-down menu available. So when you click on that workshops link, it brings you back to that page that we were originally on, and you can see how you can access the document online here. So there's a couple of different ways, like I was saying. You can download the full document. So the full document is, I believe, 67 pages long. So if you want to download it and print it out and have it as a full kit resource, that is available. And then there's also a piece here where you can just download the how to use the document. So if you want to get a better understanding of, what are all of the different pieces of the document and how can you be exploring them and accessing them, then that's just a one-pager that sort of outlines that in short terms. So the two different ways that you can access the information is to download it by chapter. So if you download a single chapter, what it does is the first page you'll get is the chapter page, and then subsequently you'll be able to see all of the workshops contained within that chapter. So there's several workshops in each one. So this is again the Women's Rights and Gender Equality chapter, and we looked originally at that Women's Rights Allies section, and now the second workshop is the Gender and Language workshop. Again, we have the outline, the participant experience map, and the resources. We move down, and this one is called Oxfam Canada in Theory and Practice. And so this is looking at Oxfam Canada's specific rights-based approach to development and the sort of gender elements that are contained within that. So that's what you get if you download by chapter. And then the alternative is, if you come down the web page a little bit more here, you can see Browse by Workshop. And what we've done here is that we have divided up each of the workshops into individual PDF files so that you can download, as opposed to having a series of workshops, you can simply browse through the titles and pick the one that is the most convenient or drawing towards the purpose that you are going to use it for. So you can sort of see there's 4 workshops here on the Women's Rights and Gender Equality section. There's 3 on the Campaigning Force and 3 on Active Citizen and Leadership. So if we were to go down here and click on Land and Power in the Campaigning Force chapter, what it will bring up for us is it will download a PDF, and it will be that original workshop cover page, which gives the title of the workshop and an explanation of what it is, and then it goes straight into the session outline. So each of these are only, 3 or 4 pages. They do have the original page numbers on them, which is why you see 34 down in the bottom corner of that. So that indicates to you sort of where it is in the spectrum of the whole document. So that's how you can sort of explore the workshops online in terms of being able to actually access them on our website. And the whole intention of producing this is that we view taking change forward as a starting point to be built upon. This is, the creation of 7 to 10 people who came together over the course of the past 6 months and sort of imagined and created the content for this training that took place. And we see this as, the sort of test space for playing with these workshops and understanding them and improving their content. So we believe that they can be used and replicated as is. We felt like the experience that was provided by these workshops was good, and we got good participant feedback from them. But we also believe, because Oxfam is a learning organization, that what we can do is we can present what we have, and we can know that this is something to be continuously built upon, and that it's a continuous learning and development experience in terms of improving the resources that we have. So our hope is that we will be able to add different workshops to each of these chapters and to sort of build upon taking change forward as a document from this summer to one that extends beyond the original starting point and becomes a bigger sort of resource for groups over a longer period of time. So we encourage people to share best practices and experiences with these particular workshops, but also to draw our attention to tools and resources that have been used or that have been created on Oxfam content that can be added into a roster like this. So in terms of what do you actually use something like this for? A couple of suggestions that have come up in this conversation is the idea of using the chapter focus as member learning curriculum for your group. So, looking at your campus group or your community group and understanding that although we exist as groups that are organizing and taking action in our communities and on our campuses, what we are also is a community that is learning together about Oxfam's work. And the more that we can sort of focus and hone our skills and understanding of what Oxfam does as an organization, the better able we will be to organize around it and to take action around those same issues. So taking something like the chapter on women's rights and gender equality and committing as a group to, over the course of 6 months, having different people lead and facilitate these workshops for your group to get a better understanding of some of those issues is one of the ways that people have suggested that this document could be used. Another way to be using the resource is to use it as a basis to pitch or propose workshops to other people to be delivered. So thinking about high schools, conferences, partner organizations, in terms of being less responsive and more proactive in terms on how we're going to get Oxfam's message across to people in our communities, using this as a document to say, listen, we're acting and organizing on behalf of this organization. We're interested in talking to the people that you're connected to on this issue. Take a look at this. I've got 6 pages. It clearly outlines what I want to be doing with your group. Give me some feedback on how this could best be reworked to meet the needs of the group of people you're working at. It gives a really clear outline. It very clearly communicates Oxfam's sort of purpose and image and mission as an organization. And that in combination with, a sort of conversation about how to best work with a partner organization, we see that this document and these resources can be used as a good basis for those conversations. And the other potential would be to use these different building blocks, these different workshop outlines as the basis for a larger event, bringing different pieces of this together in conjunction with one another, so reorganizing and reusing these workshops in a different order or in a different string to create, an afternoon session or a conference, or as a cornerstone in a speaking series, to be having one speaker coming every week on different issues, and then to close off a 4-week series with an interactive sort of facilitated group event. That could be something that these tools could be used for. Or at the same time, kind of using this too, if you're a part of a different conference or workshop or space like that, trying to integrate some of Oxfam's particular content into those conversations. So I'm just going to pause for a second and see if there's any questions, either about the document, how it's structured, how it was created, how people might be able to use it. So if there's any questions, like I said, please feel free to chat them into the chat bar, and I'll be reading them out and sort of using them to navigate the conversation. So if there's anything, please feel free to jump it in there. So particularly in sort of moving forward from this resource as a basis, what Oxfam Canada hopes to do is to be able to provide support for people in terms of how we deliver our programs and services, so that this can be not only an isolated resource that you can pull from our website, but can be a whole package of ways that you can be interacting with the organization, and that this resource supports those other ways of interacting, and that those other ways of interacting are supported by the resources that we're providing as an organization. So particularly, as I said, this was developed from and inspired by our national youth training that took place this summer. So there's multiple opportunities to attend Oxfam trainings. There are 6 campus-based youth-focused trainings that take place that are facilitated by Oxfam Canada. They're called the Change Summits. There's both a National Change Summit, which takes place once annually and brings together leaders from all across Canada to experience workshops like this and to get trained in advocacy skills, in media skills, in best practices on event organizing, on leadership skills, and really kind of focusing all of those things towards how can we advance and achieve our mission as an organization working to stop poverty and injustice. So those Oxfam trainings, there's one national one, and then there's 5 regional ones that take place across the country. And those take place throughout the year. Some of them are positioned to be happening in November, December of this year, and others will be happening earlier in the beginning of the new calendar year, so in January and February. And so if you're interested in participating in one of those trainings, I'm going to hop back to the website here. And again, we're in the youth section of the website. I'm just here on the workshop page, and so this is where you can download the workshop from. If you go over to the left-hand side, there's a section that says Oxfam Change Trainings. And so this gives you, a quick outline of what the purpose of the trainings is within the organization and the sort of content that's provided by both the national and the regional trainings. So if you click on regional change, that'll give you an outline of what the difference between a regional level training is and a national level training, and also we'll have all of the information on the dates. There is the possibility to be involved in the planning and facilitation of change at the both regional and national level. As I said earlier, this document, the whole Taking Change Forward, is the creation of the group of people that came together as the planning committee for national change this summer. So there was this group here of 10 people that were involved in the design and the implementation and the group consultation to sort of derive the content for the workshop. And so these were people that were members of campus groups from across Canada, as well as interns that were working in the Oxfam offices that came together to help create that workshop, that training in the summer, and then to create this document as a product from that. So if you're interested in taking on a role like that, we're currently accepting applications to be a part of the regional change trainings, and so that is taking place. Those applications are due next week, so on Wednesday at midnight. So there's a week if you're interested in putting your name forward. The way that you do it is that you simply click on this link, or if you move up the webpage, there's a section on the navigation bar that says apply, and when you click on that, it gives you a bit of an understanding of what the commitment is in terms of the time and the process and what it would be to be a part of planning one of these trainings, and then links directly to an application form. So you simply click on the application form, put in your email, and then that is sent in to myself as the Youth and Campus Coordinator, and then also it will be consulted with the regional youth liaisons, and we will compose teams of people that will be working in each of the regions to help plan those workshops. So that's one of the core ways that the youth program works, as I was saying, is by delivering these trainings. The other way that you can gain support from Oxfam Canada in terms of using a tool like this is to connect directly to our staff. So the Youth and Campus Outreach Officer, so that's me, Kelly Bowden. I am the person that is here to deal specifically with taking change forward and the change training related questions or queries or desires to sort of understand that content more. So that's one way specifically if you're not in a group already, if you're an individual and you're interested in using this as a resource, then you can connect to me and I'm happy to sort of help facilitate your best use of some of the content in here. And if you're not part of one of our Oxfam groups, either in a campus or on a community, then that's definitely a great way to get involved and connected with the organization. It allows you to have a face-to-face community that's connected to Oxfam in the area that you're living and working in, and it provides a lot of energy and fun. So if we hop back to the website here, I'm going to go to our main page. So if we go to oxfam.ca, if we're over in the top right-hand section here, like I was saying, the campus groups link is the first one. And then if you go to join a group, this gives you a listing of where all of our groups are across Canada. So there's a number of them in each province, and you'll see there's a slight difference in that a club or a group could be listed, or there could be a call out to a specific university. And so in this instance, so here it says, attention University of Victoria students. So this is where we have one or two individuals that have connected to the organization and are working to mobilize a group or an organizing entity in that campus or on that community. And so that is where you can contact Oxfam directly and get connected to the people that are working in that space. So there's a number of them in British Columbia, in the Prairies, across Ontario, across the Maritimes, and in Newfoundland. There's a couple of interesting initiatives where we have groups that are working on campus that are affiliated with or connected to other groups. So for example, at Trent University, our Oxfam group is a working group of and connected to the Kawartha World Issues Center. So this is a group that works at Trent University, but is also quite active in the Trent community and is sort of a dual campus community partnership that is happening in that space. So if you're interested in the community groups, if you're not working or operating on campus, then you go just back to the main page, and you can navigate from any page. Actually, this bar stays the same at the top. There's a community groups button. So you can click on here, and what it does is it gives you direction to how to connect to one of those community groups. So it redirects you to the campus groups in some cases because, as I was saying, that does bring up the opportunity of a couple of those instances where there's the connection between the campus and community. But it also redirects you to our offices where you can see there are different Oxfam staff across the country to connect to in terms of what the possibilities are for being involved in a community group in that specific area. So if worse comes to worse and you have a question that's not being answered by any of the information that you're looking for, you can always go to Contact Us. And that you can just get a direct listing of all of our contact information, and you can feel free to give the office a direct call. You can always access me, the Youth and Campus Coordinator, directly at the National Office. You can also access our National Public Engagement Officer, Sarah Lyons, there. And she is the best person to connect to in terms of non-campus public engagement. And so that sort of brings us to a close in terms of what we wanted to explore today in looking directly at the resource itself. So I hope that this has been sort of useful in getting a primer on this tool and how it can be used. And we hope that it is a resource that is not only inspiring in terms of the quality of the experiences that it provided for a group of participants this summer, but also the sort of motivation and community that came out of that experience and the possibility of being able to replicate that in different environments. So again, if there's any sort of questions or comments, if there's anything you want to know a little bit more about, then feel free to just add a quick question or comment in the chat bar, and then we can take a look at that. And then otherwise, I will leave people to sort of peruse the workbook on their own and to see if there's anything else that gets inspired from that. So are there any other comments or questions or things that people wanted to know, particular bits about in terms of the document? Great. Okay, well, one of the questions, there was a couple of questions that I had that were submitted to me in advance from people who weren't able to be on the live call today. So perhaps what I'll do is I'll just do a quick run through of those and see if those inspire anyone else to have anything that comes up with them. So one of the questions that someone sent in to me is, will this be translated into any other languages? So will this be available in French or Spanish if you wanted to be using these workshops in those contexts? So the answer is at this point, no. This is a document that is a standing document in English. The majority of Oxfam Canada's documents and printed products are created in English only, though our partner organization, Oxfam Quebec, does create a number of resources in French. So if you wanted to look for similar resources in another language, the best place to do that would be to access the Oxfam Quebec website. And so you can do that by going to Oxfam.qc. And that website is entirely in French, and they have downloadable resources that are similar to some of the ones that Oxfam Canada is providing. They do run a change training as well for their campus groups, and so that's in their youth section of their website. Explains a little bit about how their youth program works and what some of the similarities and differences are to Oxfam Canada's program. But particularly the Taking Change Forward document is going to remain only in English. One of the other questions that was put forward is, will this document be available in print format? So can I come and collect a hard copy of this as a resource? So no, this is remaining as an online digital tool for the moment. We do encourage you to be able to print it out and to carry a copy of it around yourself, or to distribute it to networks or teachers or friends or group members that you think it might be of use to. We recognize that it is quite hefty in size. Like I said, it's 66 pages, but if you print it out in black and white, it should be pretty functional as a printed document, but we will not be creating printed copies of it as is. We do have one resource that is a printed format workshop document, and that is a guide for Nova Scotia schools. So if you go into our educators section of the website, here's where you can find other sort of workshop materials from Oxfam Canada's side. So if you are looking for workshop outlines or presentations or lesson plans, then this is a place that you can pull some of those resources from as well. A lot of this is information that has been created on previously running Oxfam campaigns. So you'll find in here a lot of information about our Make Trade Fair campaign and also about our No Sweat campaign. So you can see the particular focus on sweatshops, trade and globalization in these workshops more than in the things that have been created more recently. Currently, our campaign focus is the GROW campaign, which is looking at issues of gender justice and food justice and how those intersect. So that is more the focus of the Taking Change Forward document. When you go in and take a look at the table of contents, you can see, again, those chapters really sort of highlight Oxfam's more current focus on what the issues we're working on at the moment. However, if you are interested in just sort of exploring general products that we've produced in terms of educational resources, then the workshop section has a little bit of that as well. And so within this, there is a set of workshops that were created for the Nova Scotia School Board. And they might not actually be downloadable now that I'm in here taking a look, but we do have a hard copy of them. And so that's something, if you're looking for a tangible hard copy resource, that could be one that you could contact the office to get your hands on. Yeah, so that's another place to take a look at different resources available. Okay, so are there any other questions, any other comments, anything that people wanted to know about the document? Again, like I said, feel free to add it into the chat bar, and we can take a look at those now. Otherwise, like I said, you can download the document. It's going to be live and online, available as of today. So now that you're online, you can probably access this even as we're looking at it together. I'm going to take us back to the homepage one more time so we can take a look through how to get there. So if you're on the homepage of Oxfam Canada, if you go up into Campus Groups on the top right, and then you go to Group Resources on the bottom left of the navigation bar, and then you go into Oxfam Workshops, that is where you can find the Taking Change Forward document. So you just click on any of the hyperlinks. They all indicate exactly what you'll be getting when you download, and you can just take a look at the document and peruse from there. All of the photos that are used All right. So hopefully that will wrap us up for the afternoon. Thanks so much for joining me today. It was great to be able to get a group of people together to launch this document and let people know about it as a resource. We're really excited to get it out there and to get people giving feedback on it. One of the features we're trying to set up on our website is a little ticker indicator to tell us how many times people are downloading different pieces of it so that we can get a sense of what the most popular downloads are, what the workshops are that people are most attracted to and excited about using. So look forward to that when you go to check out the resource online. So thanks so much for joining us here today, and have a wonderful afternoon.